Hi everyone. In this lesson, we are going to learn the sentence structure of notice and notice that. First, you need to remember that you must put a subject after the word that. Okay, when you are using the structure involve that, you need to put a subject after the word that. Now look at example number 1. Peter notices a car in the park. What is the verb here? The verb is notices. And what is the object? The object is a car, which is a noun phrase. Okay, now look at example number 2. Peter notices that Mr. Wong parks his car in the park. Now you have to ask yourself, what is the verb for example number 2? The verb is notices that. And what is the object? Mr. Wong parks his car. Okay, so what is different? What is being different here? In example number 2, the noun phrase is not a noun, and the object, okay, in example number 2, the object is not a noun phrase anymore. It's a sentence, which means when we want to use a sentence as the object, we cannot use notices. We have to use notices that. We need to put a that in front of the object, okay, of the sentence. Now number 3, you can rewrite example number 2 with the structure of example number 3. Peter notices Mr. Wong parking his car in the park. Okay. Again, what is the verb? Notices. And what is the object? Mr. Wong parking his car. Okay, so what is being different here? For number 3, we use notices as the verb, but we want to use a sentence as the object. And we don't want to use the word that. So we have to change the structure. We have to write Peter notices Mr. Wong parking his car. We need to use the ing form of the verb instead of the singular form. Understand? So again, if you want to use a subject as if you want to use a sentence as the object, but you don't want to use notices that, you only want to use notices, you have to use the ing form of the verb. You need to use Mr. Wong parking his car instead of notices Mr. Wong parks his car. Okay, so these are the important things that you need to know before you start working on the examples or on the practice, on the exercise below. Okay, now look at practice number 1. Mr. Lim, okay, fill in the blanks with notice or notices that. So notice and notices that. We need to know that after notice, we need to put a noun phrase. And after notices that, we need to put a sentence. Okay, now look at number 1. Mr. Lim did not notice that the man was stealing from his shop. Why do we need to use notices that? Because the object is a sentence. It's because the object is a sentence. And let's look at number 2. Mr. Lim did not notice the man. Why do we have to use notice only? It's because the object is just a noun phrase. Can you see the difference now? Okay, now number 3. When I reached the airport, I noticed, okay, you need to put a past tense here, yeah? I noticed a big man-made waterfall. Number 4. When I reached the airport, I noticed that there was a big man-made waterfall. Number 5. The bookstore has many storybooks. So this is a sentence. So you need to use notice that. I noticed that the bookstore has many storybooks. Okay, number 6. Look at the object first. Many storybooks. in the bookstore. So the object is just a noun. So you have to use I noticed many storybooks in the bookstore. Number 7, the policeman notices the policeman notices a suspicious suitcase in the corner of the airport. Number 8, look at the object. A man puts a suspicious suitcase in the corner of the airport. It's a sentence. So you have to use notices that. Notices that. The policeman notices that a man puts a suspicious suitcase in the corner of the airport. Number 9, the girl and then a puppy was struggling in the river. So it's the object is a sentence, so you have to use the girl notices that. Oh, you have to use past tense. So the girl noticed that a puppy was struggling in the river. And number 10, look at the object. A puppy in the river is a noun phrase. Therefore, you have to use the girl notices or noticed if you want to use past tense, a puppy in the river. Okay, so here are the answers for practice number 1. Before we go to practice number 2, let me recap the lesson for you. Remember, if the object is a sentence, you have to use notice that. If the object is a noun phrase, you have to use notice. Okay? Now look at practice number 2. You have to rewrite the sentences below with notice plus ing. So look at the answer number 1. I noticed that the printer makes a lot of noise. So you should do it this way. I noticed the printer making a lot of noise. Alright? Okay, now you might be wondering what is the difference between this sentence, the sentence in yellow color, and the sentence in green color. What is the difference? Okay, let me tell you the difference here. I noticed that the printer makes a lot of noise. It means that the printer makes a lot of noise, but the printer does not make noise at the moment when the speaker is speaking this sentence. Okay? And then when you say, I noticed the printer making a lot of noise, it means that the printer is making a lot of noise at the moment when you are speaking this sentence in green. Okay? So that is the small difference between the sentence in yellow and the sentence in green. Okay, number 2. The teacher notices that some students smoke in the toilet. The teacher notices some students smoking in the toilet. Okay, number 3. The woman did not notice that his son climbed over the fence. The woman did not notice his son climbing over the fence. Number 4. The man does not notice that a thief breaks into his house. The old man does not notice a thief breaking into his house. Number 5. The children notice that the teacher looks at his watch. The children notice the teacher looking at his watch. Number 6. Jenny notices that her father washes her car. Jenny notices her father washing her car. Alright. Okay, now before we go to practice number 3, practice number 3. Let me explain practice number 2 to you again. In practice number 2, we are dealing with notices and notice. Okay, we are dealing with notices, notice that, and notice. If you want to use notice that, you have to write the normal sentence, which means you have to use the singular verb. But if you want to use notice with a sentence as the object, you need to use the ing form of the verb. Okay, now practice number 3. Rewrite the sentences below with notice that. Okay, and I did not notice Peter leaving the room. I did not notice that Peter left the room. Okay, you have to use the past tense. Okay, I did not notice that Peter left the room. The villagers noticed some people throwing rubbish into the river. The villagers noticed that some people throw rubbish into the river. Okay, number 3, practice number 3. The farmer notices some people stealing his crops. The farmer notices that some people steal his crops. Number 4, Bosco notices many monkeys living in the trees. Bosco notices that many monkeys live in the trees. Number 5, the woman notices a bird making its nest under the roof. The woman notices that a bird makes its nest under the roof. Okay, number 6, the librarian noticed the naughty boy doodling in the book. Okay, so for number 6, it's past tense, yeah? The librarian noticed that the naughty boy doodled in the book. Okay, so before we finish this lesson, let me recap the lesson for you. When we want to use noticed, with a sentence as the object, you need to use the ing form of the verb. When you are using notices that, with a sentence as the object, your verb must concur with the subject. Okay, that's all for today.